Welcome to Grieving Insomniacs. I am your host, Christy Haberman. I am glad you're here. Thanks for being a part of our community. A few disclaimers before we get started. I am a licensed therapist. However, this podcast is not to be considered mental health therapy or counseling. It is for entertainment purposes only and is not associated with my counseling practice, Christy Haberman Counseling Services. Thanks for showing up. Welcome to Grieving Insomniacs. This is your host, Christy Haberman. I found myself struggling to find a topic for the podcast today because I feel like I'm beating a drum and repeating the same things over and over and over again. But maybe there's somebody out there that needs to hear this. It's okay to be sad for Thanksgiving. It's okay to be sad for the holidays. This year we did not do the traditional Thanksgiving dinner where you have family around. We actually went out to eat in a restaurant. But as to be expected, I was sick. And that seems to be the way I cope with my grief, is that I have like this physical, emotional response. It's just kind of interesting. No, it must have been Wednesday. My husband found Christopher's Christmas tree. Now, we thought it had gotten stolen. And last year we had gotten a plant and put it on his grave and made that into a Christmas tree. Well, he said, I found Christopher's Christmas tree. And I was like, oh, nice. So there was a Dollar Tree next to the restaurant we went to, and we stopped in there, and I bought a bunch of Christmas decorations for Christopher's tree. It is these rituals that help get me through my grief. I'm sure the people that heard us talking about which ornaments to choose to put on his tree at the grave are like, what are those people talking about? But it's something that I do every year. I found this Christmas tree at a garage sale. I go to the Dollar Tree to get the ornaments because they're only $1. By the end of the season, they will blow away in the wind here, get destroyed in the snow. So you don't want to spend a lot of money on them. But this year I was able to get Christmas decorations that match the decorations in our house. And it just helps me feel closer to Christopher when we do that. And I don't know why Dollar Tree was open on Thanksgiving, but it was. I mean, the Thanksgiving dinner was nice. That's a whole nother situation. I just don't even know what to say about my family. We're just not close. And I think it was an illusion that we were. One that I lived under for a very long time. I was always told that I walked around in the world and I saw people through rose-colored sunglasses. I can tell you after Christopher died that is most certainly not true. One of the things that I like about Facebook, people do a lot of complaining about Facebook. Well, one of the things that I like is that my memories come up. And as someone with memory issues, it's nice to see what I was talking about or feeling about on any particular day. So 11 years ago, which would have been November 26, 2012, Christopher had been dead for 6 months. No, not even. For June, July, August, September, October, November. 5 months. It says, it's easier to pretend when it's not the holidays. You can get distracted with work, family, and hobbies. During the holidays, it's all around you. My understanding is that I have years and years of sadness ahead of me. And I think that's very true. Because we're on Thanksgiving, right? We can leave our house. But where are we going to go? There's no one around. And if you go around by your family, it's just a reminder, right? It's a reminder that your child is not there. It is for me. I have a really hard time with, it started right after Christopher died. I can be around my own grandchildren, But it is really difficult to be around others. And I think part of it is because what I'm missing. And it's just difficult. And it's difficult. Oh, actually, that is not true. That is not true. So, do you find yourself, because your child died, thinking about death more? Do you think about your own death? And do you wonder if it's painful? So, I was thinking about Christopher on the way to work. It was one day this past week. I can't remember what day it was. And I was thinking about his dad's mother. And she's getting up there in age. I was wondering if Christopher would meet her when she died. And this is just a random thought. Like, would Christopher be there to meet her? And then I was thinking, what would that be like? Like, if I did see him around my house, or does that mean that I'm gonna die soon? Would I be happy to see him? I don't know. So I was having all of these morbid thoughts on the way to work. And then all of a sudden my radio goes out. Like just out, like in dead silence. I'm like, what? And then it comes back on. It was the strangest thing. It was also really windy that day. The radio goes out. And then I felt like I was getting pushed off the road. And I was like, this is just a very weird day. And I don't even know where those thoughts came from. But I'm just wondering, is other people like that? Do you wonder about those things? Because I know I certainly do. I wish I had some words of wisdom for you for how to get through this time of year. I just don't. You just have to get through it. That's all there is to it. I remember that heart-wrenching pain. It was so awful. And it's like you're living two lives. I wasn't very good at it at first, where I could keep that part of myself separate. And I would just be, like split in two almost. So there's a part of me that was deeply grieving, and then there was a part of me that was just going through the motions. That's kind of how I feel right now, as I'm just going through the motions of going to work and coming home, and I don't know why it's particularly difficult this year. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Because once you get through winter and summer comes, maybe we forget. And then it comes around again and you're like, oh, this is difficult. And I wish there was something I could tell you that would make it better. I'm just not sure there is. And do you ever feel like we're living in a society that's unrealistic? Especially about grief. I was thinking about this the other day and thinking about how in society our expectations are no one is allowed to be unhappy. Not allowed to be unhappy at all. In fact, I'm beginning to think that that's what we call mental illness. That we are so conditioned to be happy, 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 and not to feel any negative emotions whatsoever, that when we do, and we feel them for a significant amount of time, that we're rushing off to a therapist and we're rushing off to a psychiatrist to get medications to medicate it away, or a therapist to talk it away, to be therapized, I call it, which is, having some technique to make you feel better. When in reality, all it's going to take is time. I mean, because if you get right down to it, I do feel better than when Christopher first died. The pain is not as acute. It's always there. I'm always missing him. When I get triggered, I feel like I really want to cry. The podcast has been so helpful for that. For those of you that might be scared to come on the podcast or scared to talk about it, I just want to encourage you that it is so helpful to talk about it in almost a stream of consciousness way. But back to the whole mental health part of it. And I find that every time I go to the doctor and I tell them my son died, they ask me about my mental health. as if somehow you're not going to be sad. Like, where did that expectation come from? Or is the expectation that we be quiet about it? Just not sure. But I think about the women from the 30s and the 40s who lost multiple children, various diseases, and how did they go on? But then I think about being busy and having time, and I think about, well, when you have to grow your own food and hunt your own food and cut wood and do those kind of things, was there even really time to grieve a child? Did you just have no choice but to go forward or you die? But then we hear about ghosts and different hauntings where people say, oh, they lost a child and she's still looking for a child. So clearly they grieved, but I just wonder if it's different than what it is today. And I see different people. You know, the thing is that they'll interview people that somebody died in a tragic accident, and I can see the loss of that child on them. I'm like, oh, I recognize that look. Do I recognize it because I went through it? Do I recognize it because I'm a counselor? I don't know. Part of me would like to reach out to them people and say, hey, I have a podcast that you might find helpful. But then the other part of me is like, no, that's just advertising for yourself. But is that necessarily wrong? But then I don't know if they're the kind of people that want answers. I remember in the very beginning that I was looking everywhere to stop the pain. Luckily or not luckily, I guess. I was very aware of my family history of alcoholism, so I didn't drink. And I think part of the not drinking was I didn't want to lose control. I looked everywhere. I read everything. Just trying to find my way. If you don't want to come on the podcast and talk about it, I would highly recommend the journaling. So when Krista first died, I was meditating and I was journaling and I was writing a lot. I haven't been able to get back to the writing because I don't live somewhere where it's safe to write. If you can read it between the lines on that. Sometimes you don't have a lot of privacy in places. And then I think about writing at work and I don't have a lot of privacy there either. God, what if I died and they found my journal? Oh, when they cleaned up my office, that would be awful. That would be awful, awful. And then I think about what if I took it with me? Then it's like, well, what if you lost it? Can you tell I have anxiety? See, this is just rambling anxiety thought going on. So what I would suggest that you do is that you make a list of what you find comforting. So when you were sick as a kid, what did you do to take care of yourself? Or what did your mom do for you? Or if it was your dad, what did your dad do for you? I find comfort in heat. electric blanket, turning on the heat and staying in my room. I have to be warm. It's comforting is warm to me. And then having a special blanket. I have a special blanket. Make a list of your comforts. Sugar was mine. That is one addiction I picked up hard when Christopher died. I'd buy a whole cake and eat it. I'm paying the price now because overweight. But I've also been told it's high cortisol because you live your life in flight or fight after your children die. And I see these things on the Facebook and other places where calm your vagus nerve, watch the sunset. Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to help. So I watch the sunset and I wonder if Christopher can see the sunset where he's at. Can he see stars? Can he see the sunrise? I really like fog, but I don't live in an area where we have a lot of fog. I like to read books, but I have found that reading books is really just as detrimental to me as someone watching TV, because I'll get so involved in that book that I shut down the world around me, and so much of my time, then I have no memories. It's like blank. And that's what happened right after Christopher died also. I was reading a lot of books about mediumship and near-death experiences, trying to understand where Christopher went. As I'm going through these books, I lost a lot of time because I was disassociating while reading the book. So even things that are helpful can be harmful. So all of this is about balance. I was also drawing at one time. I'm sitting here looking up at one of my books I have about drawing, saying, maybe I should try that. Been watching way too much TV. But I think that's part of it. It's been a really stressful few months. And then the holidays coming up, and I just want to escape from my own thoughts. See, and that's the hardship. I'll never forget that doctor telling me, well, maybe you shouldn't live in your grief all the time. If there is someone out there that doesn't live in their grief all the time, that doesn't feel like their grief is present in every moment, in every day, 24/7, send me a message. Oh, I got to tell you guys about this dream I had. This was horrific. So it was on Wednesday morning that I had this dream. And I had the dream that Christopher, how did this go? Somehow Christopher was back and he had cancer, but he didn't have enough money to pay for the treatments. And he needed $379.17. Why that makes a difference, I have no idea. But he needed that money in order to pay for his cancer treatments. And I was like, I'll pay for that money. I'll pay for it. He's like, no. And then he died all over again. That's how grief shows up for me. It shows up in my dreams. Some people would be like, that's not such a bad dream. But it was. Christopher died before Obamacare. He was a college student and a bartender. He had no way to pay for his cancer treatments. And I know that while he was in that hospital, all he could think about was how he was going to pay for it. So he was working at a hospital, and all of his co-workers donated money to him to keep him on his insurance. And he was starting a new job, and then the new job would take over the insurance at the beginning of July. Well, he never made it to the beginning of July. I don't even know that he made it to his first shift at that new job because he thought he could get chemo on the weekend and then go to work that next Monday. So Friday he had the chemo and then got really sick over the weekend and died on Sunday. So I don't think he even made it to his first shift. So he's always worried about money, and so were we. I wasn't really in a position that I could give him money, but I would have. I'd have sold my house, I would have sold my car, I would have done anything. But prideful. Christopher was prideful. Sometimes being prideful is our downfall. His friends arranged fundraisers and stuff for him, but I know he was thinking about the money when he was dying. So that's what makes that dream so significant. It's because we were trying to figure out how to pay for his cancer treatments. $379.17 per treatment. And feeling so powerless because you want to help him and he's like, no. He was the same way too when I wanted to go be with him while he got his treatments and he said no. So whether we like it or not, the choices that other people make affect our grief tremendously. And I don't know how to get people to understand that. It's just so sad. One of the things that I would recommend also with this whole Thanksgiving issue, if you have a family like mine that doesn't want to invite you because they think you're so sad or you're too sad and you're going to ruin it all for everyone because you're sad, or you only want to talk about your deceased loved ones, I encourage you to take control. Things did not get better for me at Thanksgiving time till I took control. And I said, this is what I am doing. And if you want to join me in doing this, you're welcome to join me in doing this. But I'm not going to wait for you to invite me around. And my stepmother said something today that, actually it was on Thanksgiving, that I thought was really insightful. So my dad must have talked to her about Thanksgiving and what kind of plans are. And I feel really bad for him because he's married to a very dominant woman, but my mom was dominant too, so he must like dominant women. But he must have talked to her about Thanksgiving. And she told me she told Dad that she was of the age that it was our turn to invite them for Thanksgiving. And then she said I called her. And I was I don't understand that thinking. I just don't. And maybe it's because I lost a child. And maybe that's it, that I just value Colin so much. Like so much. Like I would never say it's his turn to invite me. Because I consider the act of cooking as an expression of my love. Taking care of people. That's what I do. That's one of the reasons why I think I have dogs, because I have this innate wanting to take care of things. So that would be the other thing that I would tell you, is take control of your Thanksgiving. Be the planner. And if everybody else wants to come along, invite them along. Otherwise, do what you need to do. Don't wait. I'm getting the little red. It's time to be done now. I don't know if there's even a particular theme for this podcast. Just talking about Thanksgiving. This is Christy signing off. Hope you knuckle through it the rest of the holiday season. Take care.